I own 9 tools. 9. That is every tool I use to survive on this mountain. An axe, a hatchet, a draw knife, a bow saw, a fixed blade knife, a set of 3 chisels, and a pair of hand-forged tongs I use for everything from moving hot coals to bending metal over a fire. Total cost when I acquired all of them was $47. Some I bought used. Some I made myself from scrap. One I found in an abandoned cabin. I have not replaced a single one of them in 21 years. Not one. The axe has felled hundreds of trees. The knife has skinned more animals than I can count. The draw knife has stripped the bark from every log in my cabin. The bow saw has cut every piece of firewood I have burned through 21 winters. And every single one of these tools works as well today as the day I first picked it up. Most of them work better. I want to explain to you exactly why that is possible and exactly why the $12 billion American hand tool industry does not want you to understand what I am about to tell you. Because the moment you understand it, you will never buy another tool from a hardware store again. Stay with me until the end, because the last thing I am going to show you is a method of treating steel that I learned from a dead man's journal. And it is the single reason my tools will outlast me, outlast this cabin, and outlast anything you can buy at any price from any manufacturer on earth. Let me start with the axe, because it is the tool I use more than any other, and it is the tool that taught me everything I know about what has gone wrong with the modern tool industry. My axe is a 3.5 pound single bit head that I bought at a yard sale in the valley in the spring of 2005 for $8. The handle was split. The head was surface rusted. The edge was chipped and dull. The woman selling it told me it had been her father's, and she thought it was from the 1940s or 1950s. She did not know the maker. I did not care about the maker. I cared about the steel. I could see it in the grain pattern on the cheek of the head when I wiped the rust off with my thumb. Tight, fine, consistent grain. That told me everything I needed to know. This axe head was drop forged from high carbon steel, and it was made in an era when American tool manufacturers still understood what that meant. Here is what has changed since that axe was made, and here is why it matters. Before roughly 1960, the major American tool manufacturers, names like Collins, Plum, True Temper, Kelly, and a dozen others, forged their axe heads from 1055 to 1075 carbon steel. Those numbers refer to the carbon content. 1055 steel contains 0.55% carbon. 1075 contains 0.75%. Carbon is what makes steel hard. It is what allows an edge to be ground thin and hold that thinness under repeated impact. A well-forged 1060 carbon steel axe head can be sharpened to a 25-degree edge angle and hold that edge through hundreds of strikes against hardwood before it needs touching up. That is what my axe does. That is what every quality axe made before 1960 did. Starting in the mid-1960s and accelerating through the 1970s and 1980s, the American tool industry began shifting production overseas and changing their steel specifications. the carbon content dropped. Many modern axes are forged from 1040 or even 1035 steel. Lower carbon means softer steel. Softer steel means the edge deforms faster under impact. It dulls quicker. It chips easier. It requires more frequent sharpening. And here is the part that matters from a business perspective. A tool that dulls fast is a tool that frustrates its owner. A frustrated owner does one of two things. He buys a new tool, or he buys accessories, sharpening systems, replacement handles, edge guards, the entire ecosystem of products that exists to compensate for a tool that was deliberately made worse than it needed to be. The modern tool industry does not profit from tools that last forever. It profits from tools that fail on a schedule. This is not speculation. This is metallurgy. You can test the hardness of any axe head with a Rockwell hardness tester, a standard tool in any machine shop. A vintage American axe from the 1940s or 1950s will typically test between 54 and 58 on the Rockwell C scale. A modern imported axe from a major retailer will test between 45 and 50. Those numbers represent a massive difference in edge retention. A 56 Rockwell axe holds its working edge roughly 3 to 4 times longer than a 47 Rockwell axe under identical conditions. 3 to 4 times longer, meaning you sharpen 1/4 as often. You spend 1/4 the time maintaining it, and the tool lasts functionally forever instead of degrading over a few seasons of hard use. My $8 yard sale axe tests at 56 Rockwell. I know because I had it tested during one of my rare trips to the valley when I stopped at a machine shop to have a piece of metal cut for another project. I asked the machinist to test the head out of curiosity. He looked at the number and told me that axe head was worth more than most new axes on the market. He was right. A modern premium axe from a Scandinavian manufacturer, marketed as a professional forestry tool, will cost you $180 to $250 and test at 57 to 59 Rockwell. My $8 axe is 1 point below the most expensive axe on the market. 1 point for $8. Now let me talk about handles, because this is the other place where the modern industry has betrayed you. The handle on my axe when I bought it was hickory, but it was split and unusable. I rehandled it myself using a piece of ash I cut from a tree about a mile from my cabin. Ash and hickory are the two traditional handle woods in North America, and they are traditional for a reason that has nothing to do with tradition and everything to do with material science. Both species have long, interlocking grain fibers that absorb shock without fracturing. When an axe strikes wood, the impact energy travels down the handle. In a good piece of ash or hickory, that energy is absorbed and dissipated along the full length of the grain. The handle flexes microscopically and returns to shape. It does this thousands of times without weakening. A modern replacement handle from a hardware store is likely made from imported hickory that was fast grown on a plantation. Fast growth means wide grain spacing. Wide grain means weaker shock absorption. the handle breaks sooner. Or worse, the handle is fiberglass, which the industry markets as unbreakable. Fiberglass does not break. It does something worse. It transmits the full shock of every strike directly into your hands, your wrists, your elbows, and your shoulders. The vibration dampening capacity of fiberglass is almost zero compared to a straight-grained piece of air-dried ash. I have seen men in their 40s with chronic wrist and elbow pain from years of using fiberglass-handled tools. The material does not serve the user. It serves the manufacturer because it eliminates warranty claims for broken handles. Your joints pay the price instead. I carved my ash handle with my draw knife in about 3 hours. I shaped the eye to fit the head with a rasp I made from a rough piece of sandstone. I seated the head by soaking the top of the handle in water to swell the wood tight into the eye, then drove a wooden wedge in from the top to lock it permanently. No epoxy, no metal wedge, a wooden wedge in a wooden handle seated in a forged steel head. This is how every axe was hung for 500 years before the tool industry decided that speed of manufacturing mattered more than quality of product. My handle has been on this axe for 21 years. It is never loosened, it is never cracked, it will never need to be replaced unless I damage it through my own carelessness. The draw knife is the tool I am most proud of because I made it from nothing. In my first month on this ridge, I found a rusted leaf spring from a truck on the logging road about 3 miles from my cabin. Leaf springs are made from 5160 chromium vanadium steel. That is one of the best steels in existence for edge tools. It is tough, it holds an edge extremely well, and it is nearly impossible to break under normal use. The automotive industry uses it because it can flex millions of times without fracturing. That same property makes it ideal for a draw knife, which is a tool that undergoes constant bending stress as you pull it toward your body through wood. I heated the leaf spring section in my campfire until it was cherry red. I bent it into a slight curve using 2 rocks as an anvil and a hammer. I ground the edge on a flat river stone over the course of 2 days, working it slowly to avoid overheating the steel and ruining the temper. I wrapped the handles in rawhide soaked in pine pitch. The total time investment was about 4 days. The total cost was 0. That draw knife has stripped the bark from every log in my cabin, carved every handle, shaped every piece of furniture I own, and processed hundreds of hides. The edge geometry I ground into it 21 years ago is still the same edge geometry it has today. I touch it up on a river stone every few weeks, 5 minutes of work. The steel has never chipped. It has never rolled. It has never failed in any way. Now let me talk about maintenance, because this is where most people go wrong, and this is where the tool industry has inserted itself most profitably into your life. Walk into a hardware store and you will find an entire aisle dedicated to tool maintenance products. Sharpening stones, honing oils, rust preventers, handle conditioners, blade coatings, edge guards, an entire ecosystem of products designed to maintain tools that should not need most of them if they were made correctly and cared for simply. I maintain every tool I own with two things: a river stone and animal fat. That is it. The river stone is a flat piece of fine-grained sandstone I pulled from the creek bed near my cabin. Natural sandstone in the right grain size is one of the best sharpening surfaces available. The grit is embedded in the stone uniformly by geological processes that took millions of years. A manufactured sharpening stone is made by bonding synthetic abrasive particles to a substrate. Over time, the bonding agent wears unevenly, the surface develops low spots, and the stone needs to be flattened or replaced. My river stone has been wearing evenly for 21 years because the grit is not bonded to the surface. It is the surface. When the top layer wears down, the next layer is identical because the entire stone is the same material all the way through. It will outlast any manufactured stone by decades. The animal fat is rendered bear or deer tallow. After every use, I wipe each tool with a thin coat of tallow. This does two things. It displaces moisture from the steel surface, which prevents rust, and it creates a thin hydrophobic barrier that repels water between uses. Modern tool maintenance products, sprays, and oils marketed specifically for tools are petroleum-based. They work fine in the short term, but petroleum products break down under UV exposure and temperature cycling. In a mountain environment with extreme heat in summer and extreme cold in winter, a petroleum-based protectant will degrade within weeks and need reapplication. Animal tallow does not break down the same way. It polymerizes slightly on the surface of the steel, forming a semi-permanent coating that gets more effective over time as additional thin layers are applied. My axe head has 21 years of tallow coatings built up on the cheeks. The steel underneath has never seen a molecule of rust, not a single spot of oxidation in 21 years of use in one of the wettest mountain environments in Montana. Now, here is the thing I want to tell you about that I have never seen mentioned anywhere. Not in any blacksmithing book, not on any tool restoration channel, not in any metallurgy text I have come across. I found it in the journal of a trapper named Edward Parran, who lived in these mountains in the 1930s and 1940s. The same journal where I found the heated floor technique I used in my cabin. Parran was a tool maker as well as a trapper. He made most of his own tools from scrap steel, just as I did. And in one entry, dated November 1938, he described a process he called cold blacking that he used on every piece of steel he owned. The process is simple. You take a finished steel tool, clean it thoroughly of any oil or debris, and heat it over a fire until it is hot to the touch but not glowing, roughly 400 degrees. Then you quench it in a bath of strong black tea, not water, tea. You repeat this process 3 times. Heat to 400 degrees, quench in tea, heat again, quench again, heat a 3rd time, quench a 3rd time. The tannic acid in the tea reacts with the iron in the steel at that temperature to form a thin layer of iron tannate on the surface. Iron tannate is a stable black oxide compound that is chemically bonded to the steel. It is not a coating sitting on top of the metal. It is a conversion of the outermost molecules of the steel itself into a corrosion-resistant compound. The steel turns dark black. That black layer does not chip, does not peel, does not wear off under normal use, and it prevents rust more effectively than any oil, wax, or synthetic coating on the market. When I read that entry, I did not believe it. I tried it on a spare piece of steel I had lying around, a scrap piece of no value. I brewed the strongest batch of tea I could from dried Labrador tea leaves, which grow wild all over this ridge. I heated the steel in my fire, quenched it in the tea, repeated twice more. The steel turned jet black. That was 19 years ago. That piece of scrap steel is still sitting on my workbench. It has been exposed to rain, snow, humidity, and temperature swings from 100 degrees above zero to 38 below zero for 19 years. There is not a single spot of rust on it, not one. I cold-blacked every tool I own after that experiment. Every one. The axe, the hatchet, the draw knife, the chisels, the knife. All of them have that black iron tannate layer on every surface that is not a cutting edge. Combined with the tallow I apply to the edges after each use, my tools exist in a state of near total protection from corrosion. The steel cannot rust because the surface is no longer bare iron. It is a converted compound that does not oxidize. Edward Perrin figured this out alone in a mountain cabin 90 years ago, using nothing but campfire heat and tea brewed from wild plants. No chemistry degree, no laboratory, just observation and experimentation by a man who needed his tools to last because there was no store to buy replacements. The modern tool coating industry generates approximately $800 million a year in the United States. Chrome plating, nickel plating, powder coating, Teflon coating, ceramic coating, all of it applied in factories using processes that require specialized equipment, toxic chemicals, and significant energy input. All of it degrades over time. Chrome flakes, powder coating chips, Teflon wears through, and when the coating fails, the bare steel underneath rusts immediately. Because nothing was done to the steel itself, the coating was sitting on top of the problem instead of solving it. Iron tannate is not sitting on top of the steel. It is the steel, converted at the molecular level into something that does not corrode. The process requires heat, tea, and 20 minutes of time. Cost is zero. I want to put all of this together so you can see the full picture. I own 9 tools that cost me $47 total. Every edge tool is made from high carbon or chromium vanadium steel, either vintage American forged steel or scrap automotive steel that I shaped myself. Every handle is carved from locally harvested straight grain ash or wrapped in rawhide. Every steel surface has been cold-blacked with tannic acid to prevent corrosion at the molecular level. Every edge is maintained on a natural river stone that will never wear out. Every surface is protected between uses with a thin coat of rendered animal tallow that costs nothing. The total maintenance time for all 9 tools is about 30 minutes per week. The total maintenance cost per year is 0. The expected lifespan of every tool in my collection is effectively unlimited. They will outlast me. They will outlast this cabin. If someone finds them on this ridge 100 years from now, they will pick them up, sharpen the edges on a stone, and go to work, because there is nothing in them that can fail. The average American spends $3,200 on hand tools over a lifetime, according to a 2021 consumer survey by the Home Improvement Research Institute. That number does not include power tools. That is just hand tools. Hammers, axes, saws, chisels, pliers, screwdrivers. Tools that are purchased, used for a few years, degraded by inferior steel and poor handle materials, and then replaced. $3,200 spent on an endless cycle of buying the same tools over and over, because the industry that makes them has decided that a tool that lasts forever is a tool that is only sold once. And a tool that is only sold once is bad for shareholders. I spent $47 once, 21 years ago. I will never spend another dollar on tools for as long as I live. The difference between my approach and the one the industry has sold you is not skill. It is not access. It is not luck. It is knowledge. Specifically, it is knowledge about steel, about carbon content, about edge geometry, about handle material, about surface treatment, and about maintenance. Knowledge that was common among every working man in America before 1960, and that has been systematically removed from public awareness because an informed consumer is a dangerous consumer. A man who knows what good steel looks like does not buy bad steel. A man who can hang his own handle does not buy a fiberglass replacement. A man who can cold black his tools with tea does not buy a $14 can of rust preventive spray. The industry does not fear your strength. It fears your knowledge. Tell me in the comments what tools you own that have lasted the longest. The ones your grandfather passed down. The ones you found at a flea market. The ones that feel different in your hand than anything you can buy new. Because those tools are evidence. They are proof that what I am telling you is true. And every one of them has a story worth preserving. The next video is about something I get asked about constantly. Food. How I cook every meal on this mountain with no gas, no power, no electricity, and no appliance of any kind. My entire kitchen cost me $14, and it has fed me 3 meals a day for 21 years. The food industry is not going to like what I have to say about that. I am going to say it anyway.